Dear America, where the theater of politics is as surreal as an anarcho-communist painting, and the discussions around climate policy teeter on the absurd. Gather round, dear listeners, as Hasanabi takes us through a journey of the Democratic Party's climate and energy policy compared to that of the Republican side, starring none other than Donald Trump.
There has been a huge amount of environmental progress in the last 4 years, probably more so than any other 4 years in the U.S. The administrative wins have been huge, and IRA/BIL are the largest climate investments of any country in the world. Okay, I wouldn't say of any country in the world. China's right there, brother. Come on now. No, he's not. Fango Lives is not wrong. No, he's not wrong. Guys, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. He's not wrong. He's not wrong. Stop. Just because we don't hyper focus on the Brandon accomplishments does not change the reality that, like, yes, there have been achievements under the Biden administration in terms of climate policy. The issue, on the other hand, is like we're burning the candle on both ends. He will understand and admit to this as well. What do I mean by this? On the one hand, we're making renewable energy investments. I agree, and that's a good thing. Okay. Not necessarily campaigning on it, which I think is a major flub, but we're not going to talk about that. Okay, you got like battery plants opening up in like the middle of the country. Those are good things, okay? And they're unionizing too. Okay, but on the other hand, and he's right, U.S. is becoming the largest oil exporter. And on top of that, the Supreme Court gutted the regulatory agency's mechanism for regulation. Like, so on the one hand, we moved 2 steps in the positive direction and moved 11 steps in the negative direction. So it's really up. It's really, really, really bad. It is really bad. I'm just talking in terms of like America's future prospects in being a renewable energy provider on this planet, or even being remotely competitive with China in terms of renewable energy investments. I think we are so far, we are left behind on that front. It's terrible. Oh, it's terrible. And when the Harris campaign is not touting the legislative accomplishments of IRA, for example, or like even from the perspective of like opening up new manufacturing fronts in the United States of America, and just simply talking about all the new jobs that were created under the Biden administration, which is good. You could say that. Yes, there's a post-COVID recovery bump, but like beyond that, if you don't talk about like new manufacturing plants opening up, the fact that they're unionized as well on top of that, and how much investments into the renewables is actually good for the future of the country, and on the issue of energy, the only thing you say is drill, baby, drill, and I'm never going to stop fracking. That's the takeaway for people. And that is going to have even worse, more significant consequences in terms of political discourse in this country, because it's the same principle behind the immigration stuff, right? The same principle behind the immigration stuff, where it's literally you're saying, I'm hyper-focusing on fracking and I'm pro-fracking. That's the only position that you need to hear from me in terms of like what I believe we must do for energy. You have no interest in pushing and defending your agenda, even if it's beneficial, okay? You have no interest in advocating for the good things that you've done. That's why I'm so frustrated with the Biden administration, and that's why I'm so frustrated with the Kamala Harris campaign. These guys on the Republican side do such a phenomenal job by exposing their messaging weakness, okay? Their messaging weakness on this front is mind-boggling, okay? Mind-boggling. Like, Republicans for the past 4 years have been crying about 85,000 IRS agents, okay? 85,000 IRS agents. They all got guns. They're coming to your house and they're going to take your trailer park away, okay? That's how they're presenting it. Meanwhile, the IRS has been able to collect billions of dollars in taxable revenue from avoiders, okay? from people who have not only through legal mechanisms, which there's plenty of, avoided taxes harder than the top of the hour avoiders that avoid the top of the hour ad break by subscribing for $6, even though it's September right now, so it's 30% off, or for free with a Twitch Prime. Okay. Yeah, they got those from millionaires. Okay. From millionaires. The IRS took back billions of dollars from millionaires, not regular working class people. The IRS is also prosecuting Coca-Cola for being a tax dodger to the tune of $16 billion. And you're out here not putting that as like the top, like not using that every goddamn day, talking about how the FTC is going after Amazon. Like, these are things that you should be messaging, but the Democrats don't, because they're terrified that corporations are going to get mad at them. Their corporate subsidiaries, their real donors, the actual constituents that they care about is going to get mad at them, and they're going to pull support. Okay? That's why they don't run on that shit. Oh. And it's genuinely upsetting. This administration, beyond being, very obviously permanent genocide in Gaza, pro-permanent genocide in Gaza, which, by the way, I'm running the 3-minute ad break right now, by the way. But outside of that, this administration has been significantly more progressive than the Obama administration even. Okay? This is something that I have openly recognized. Pulling out of Afghanistan was phenomenal. Okay? It was the right thing to do. And the Biden administration did that. It requires a lot of bravery. It requires burning a lot of goddamn social and political capital to do so. And they did that. Okay? They never defended it. Insane. They never defended it. You just completely capitulated to the right-wing framing from the media and the Republican Party on that front. 13 of our best soldiers died. 13 of our best soldiers died. Now the Taliban is doing tricks on it. They're doing trick shots with the Blackhawks that they got from us. Ridiculous. It's right there. Just of our best soldiers died in Afghanistan under the Trump administration. 13 died when we were withdrawing out of Afghanistan. Of course, it was going to be a complicated process. Of course, it was going to be bloody. Not a single veteran needs to die. And that's precisely why we did the right thing. Because when you don't have troop presence in an active war zone, they don't die. Okay?
Brace yourselves as we plunge into the depths of political absurdity and hypocrisy in the world of energy policy. First up, the Biden administration, the supposed climate warriors who have managed to pass the Inflation Reduction Act, IRA, and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, BIL, some of the most significant investments in renewable energy ever seen. Hassan acknowledges this achievement, noting it as a rare glimmer of progress in a sea of bureaucratic quicksand. Battery plants are opening in places most Americans can't even locate on a map, and these plants are unionizing too. But here's the twist, and it's one that would make any reasonable person's head spin. While Biden's administration claims the mantle of progressivism in climate policy, the US has also doubled down as one of the world's top oil exporters. It's as if they're burning the candle at both ends, proclaiming a love for green energy while happily pumping out oil like there's no tomorrow. Hassan lays into this paradox with his characteristic flair, observing that the Democrats have managed to take 2 steps forward and a solid 10 steps back. This push for oil exports isn't merely hypocritical, it's counterproductive to every climate goal they pretend to hold dear. How can America hope to compete with a country like China, which has invested heavily in renewables, when they're still pushing fossil fuels like it's the 1950s? To Hassan, it's painfully obvious the US has chosen the path of least resistance, all while trying to brand itself as a leader in clean energy. It's as if they're playing both sides and hoping no one notices the contradictions. Then comes the frustration over the Democrats' messaging, which Hassan argues is a travesty of missed opportunities. the Biden administration could be highlighting the climate achievements of the era and BIL, the investments in renewable energy, the jobs created, and the revitalization of American manufacturing. But instead of touting these accomplishments, they're busy assuring voters of their support for fracking. The Democrats' messaging seems intent on appeasing corporate interests, their real constituency, rather than rallying the American people around a shared vision for the future. And here's where Hassan takes the gloves off, pointing out how the Republicans have, ironically, managed to master the messaging game. Look no further than the endless hysteria over the IRS agents. The Republicans have painted a vivid picture of an army of IRS agents armed to the teeth, ready to repossess every trailer park in America. They've taken a mundane administrative update and turned it into a doomsday scenario that's caught the imagination of millions. Meanwhile, the Democrats have billions recovered from corporate tax dodgers, but they whisper it under their breath like a guilty secret. Hassan's exasperation is palpable as he asks why the Democrats can't leverage this success as a rallying cry against corporate tax evasion. Hassan continues, underscoring the Democrats' reluctance to challenge their true masters, corporate America. The fear of upsetting their donors has hamstrung the Biden administration from celebrating its successes, like prosecuting Coca-Cola for a massive tax evasion case. Rather than trumping these wins, the Democrats sit quietly, as if afraid their corporate allies might see them as traitors. It's this lack of backbone, this refusal to claim their accomplishments, that leaves Hassan fuming. They've got ammunition, but they refuse to load it into the gun. And then there's the Afghanistan withdrawal, one of Biden's boldest moves and perhaps the defining foreign policy decision of his presidency. Hassan praises the withdrawal, noting the courage it took to face the backlash and the difficulty of extracting troops from an active war zone. But once again, the Democrats bungled the messaging. Instead of framing the withdrawal as a long overdue end to an endless war, they allowed the narrative to be co-opted by images of chaos, bloodshed, and defeat. Hassan's frustration boils over as he points out that the right wing ran with the story of 13 of our best soldiers dying, as if it weren't an unavoidable risk in ending America's longest war. Hassan's critique extends to the left's general lack of vision and inability to focus on the big picture. While they're willing to push for progressive policies quietly, they lack the confidence to turn those policies into public triumphs. This timidity in messaging, Hassan argues, leaves the door wide open for right-wing narratives that paint Democrats as weak and ineffective. Hassan's exasperation stems from watching the Democrats cover when they should be roaring. This lack of conviction is maddening to him because, in his view, it's precisely why the left fails to capture the public's imagination. And then, of course, there's the climate crisis itself. Hassan argues that the Biden administration's incrementalism simply won't cut it in the face of impending climate catastrophe. While the ERA and BIL may be steps in the right direction, they are woefully insufficient. The situation demands radical action, a complete transformation of America's relationship with energy, and yet Biden and his team seem content to offer half measures and hollow promises. Hassan can hardly believe it, they're touting solar panels while drilling for oil. The hypocrisy reeks. The Democrats' dilemma, as Hassan sees it, is that they are too beholden to corporate interests to ever fully embrace the radical changes needed to avert disaster. They're locked into a mindset that prioritizes short-term gains over long-term survival. For Hassan, this isn't just a policy failure, it's a moral failing of the highest order. The stakes are existential, yet the Democrats seem content to play the game as if it's business as usual. Hassan concludes with a damning comparison. While Trump and his ilk may openly flaunt their disdain for climate policy, at least they're honest about their intentions. The Democrats, on the other hand, try to have it both ways, claiming to champion the environment while quietly perpetuating the status quo. Hassan's frustration is clear. This two-faced approach is worse than no policy at all because it creates the illusion of progress while the planet continues to burn. In the end, Hassan's critique is both blistering and heartbreaking. He sees the potential for change, the slivers of hope in policies like the ERA and BIL, but he's furious at the Democrats for failing to capitalize on them. The stakes are nothing less than the future of the planet, yet the Biden administration's tepid response leaves Hassan and his audience with little to celebrate. As Hassan sees it, America is at a crossroads, and only time will tell if the Democrats can finally muster the courage to choose a path that truly serves the people and the planet.